chat with her for their 30 minutes or so.
Okay, great. Yeah, we when we have somebody that comes in and we has these kind of difficulties, we put them through a testing protocol, and the first thing we do is we run them through a biochip scan. In other words, we want to see if they have a microchip implant.
Mm-hmm.
And eliminate that as a possibility. So that's a process that takes about 4 to 5 hours, and we use a tuned antenna system and some high-gain special preamplifiers that go into a spectrum system, and we look for the processor noise of the chip itself. In other words, any microchip that's actually doing a job is emitting processing radiation. There's a certain noise, electro emanation, and this particular system looks for that emanation, and we've had good success finding chips, especially ones that will not show up on an MRI or a CAT scan because they're made of biocompatible materials, some of them, and they don't show up on the imaging systems. So that's the first thing we do is try to eliminate that. This is actually the whole process is really a process of elimination. Then the next thing we do is we spend we'll actually put them to bed that evening, and we'll then cover them with some special shielding material that we have, which is passive shielding. This is a special material that we get from Germany. It's a nickel-silver woven metallized fabric. And what we'll do there is attempt to shield them from electromagnetic energy that's coming at them to see if, from just a passive standpoint, we can reduce some of the effect that they're getting. The next thing that we do for the next 24 hours, we put them in a room with a spectrum analyzing system that's set up to capture information that comes as directed energy. And this particular system is a computerized system that, as it captures things, it summates the waves so that if these events, these electro-directed energy events are very short in duration, that it'll capture and store it in memory. And we're able to look at a summated wave over time to determine what directed energy, what frequency, what bandwidth, what waveform is in coordination with the symptoms that they're having.
Okay.
And then the next step is to put them in an active shielding system. We have actual static field rooms that you go into, and the room is an electrostatic egg, and you go to a whole nother level of shielding where it throws the bias of the incoming wave out of whack, and people start to get some serious relief.
All right, let's bring Marcia in right now. Marcia, hello there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? That's the question.
Well, I'm a lot better since I know Roger.
Tell me about these, how this first started to happen to you.
George, this is so bizarre because I'm the most average mainstream person without any problems with the government or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in New York. I live in Manhattan. And this is like a New York real estate kind of thing. I live in a building that was rental and became a co-op, but I have a rent-controlled apartment.
Okay, yeah.
So the woman who was in the apartment next door to me bought her apartment, and in time she sublet it out to this really strange guy. And nobody could figure out kind of where he was coming from because he looked like a gnome. Just very weird, and he was very antisocial. But he found out that I had a rent-controlled apartment, so actually he was paying a fortune for his. And I was paying much less for mine right next door.
Okay.
So what happened over time was that there was a couple who lived on the floor below who had owned a security company. And they had lost their license and had fallen into very hard times. So somehow he hooked up with them. And one morning I woke up and I had these voices, which was of the couple who had the real estate company and him. And they were telling me that I had no choice, my situation was hopeless, that I was going to have to turn over the key to the apartment to the people on the second floor, the key to my cottage in New Jersey, and the key to my car, and just leave.
And these voices were being bombarded into your head.
Yes, once this starts, you have these voices 24/7.
When you hear them, Marcia, do you hear them as if they're coming into your ear, or are they like in your head? Like we would think thoughts, and you know when you think of something, we know what the thought is, but it sounds like a voice, but it's in our head. What
happens is that they come at you in a couple of different ways. because they have a schedule and they rotate with each other. If you're into a situation where you really have to concentrate, what they'll do is mob you. Let's say you were taking an exam.
Okay.
Or you're in a meeting with people. Okay, I was working at Bear Stearns Security Company, working with millions of dollars for different things.
Sure.
If you're in a meeting with people and you really have to be sharp, what happens is they will mob you, which means that they'll bombard you with information while you're all dressed up and talking to people.
They must have bombarded everybody at Bear Stearns after what happened to them.
Poor Jimmy Kane. I know he had to go there with armed guards.
Jeez,
the poor guy
you never
before
know
the place
now.
closed. But what happens is they will mob you speaking. The voices will speak to you so that you get confused with the information that the person at the meeting is telling you.
No.
So you would be not as sharp as you could be unless you were very alert about this.
Well, difficult.
I am all the time.
Difficult to concentrate if you're hearing voices at the same time.
What happens is that once these people start in on you, it's the same way as Roger was telling you. It's 24/7. If you read a newspaper, if you read a book, they will talk along with you, with the words. If you call up, let's say, for banking by phone, and you give your Social Security number and the information to get your account information, they'll repeat everything with you.
So if you say your Social Security number, which you probably already have,
and your password,
they'll say it right back into your head.
They say it to you because what happens is this would make you feel that your privacy is totally compromised. And then they're going to threaten you and tell you that one of these days you're going to call up and they'll take all the money out of your account.
Now, in your particular case, Marcia, what do you think they wanted? Were you being tested, or were they truly out to get something from you?
What they want me to do is to give up the apartment. That's what they tell me every day.
They wanted the apartment. Why?
That
Why?
I have to bring the woman who had the defunct security company still lives in this building on the second floor in very dire circumstances, and people pay $500,000 for apartments in this building. So she's in a situation where she's totally out of her element.
So they want you out.
Right, and the guy who was subletting the apartment next door, the managing agent, asked him to leave because he was having a problem with other tenants in the building because he was so antisocial.
Now, Roger, in your opinion, is this individual, this gnome-type character that's been bombarding her, is he working on his own, or does he have some kind of government backing, or what?
Well, you can't go down to Radio Shack and buy this kind of equipment.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah. But and the interesting thing is when I deal with cases like this, a lot of times they're just running a single test. As an example, in the most drastic example, let's see if we can get her to drown her children. But let's also deal with the much lighter kind of examples. Let's see if we can get this person to give up all their assets.
Okay.
To hand over the keys to their home, to hand over the keys to their car. These are individual tests that they've decided on individuals to how are we going to go about achieving the end result, and what protocol should we try along the way to see if we can get it to happen. So in a lot of cases, they're just trying to get people to do very simple things, but there are other more serious cases where they do try to get people to commit suicide.
Is the goal to get people to do things against their will, things that they normally wouldn't do, like in Marcia's case?
Yes.
She doesn't want to give up the apartment.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. They're going to find something of interest. But to you and me, in terms of if we were sitting back at the Pentagon trying to figure out, well, how are we going to run some basic tests? What do we want this person to do? Because really what you're trying to do here is you're trying to cause someone to do something that they wouldn't want to do, but just eventually you just wear them down.
Exactly, because they keep telling you that your situation is totally hopeless. And then what happens is that the harassment takes different facets. For example, they create a targeted frequency. I have 2 little parakeets, and what they do is they have targeted a frequency against the parakeets. So all of a sudden they would start screaming in their cage and fluttering all over the place. And then these voices would laugh, whoever was on there, and they would just tell me that they were going to drive the parakeets crazy until I gave up all, the key